Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're stepping back over 3,200 years in time into what was honestly a deeply interconnected, thriving era known as the Late Bronze Age. I want you to imagine a vibrant ancient world stretching all the way from the shores of Italy to the mountains of Afghanistan. We're talking monumental palaces, booming international trade, and powerful empires living in what felt like a golden age. But then, seemingly overnight, this glorious, highly complex society was just violently shattered, plunging humanity into a dark age that lasted for literally centuries. So you have to ask, who destroyed the ancient world? It's genuinely one of history's greatest and most thrilling archaeological mysteries. Between the years 1200 and 1100 BC, incredibly advanced empires, like the mighty Hittites and the famous Mycenaeans, were completely wiped off the map. We are looking at an epic, 1,000-kilometer-wide crime scene here. Majestic cities were burned to the ground, entire written languages simply vanished, and these once bustling capitals were turned into empty, haunted ruins. And we actually have a voice from the victims. Get this, a real-life distress call from King Amurapi, the very last ruler of the incredibly wealthy coastal city of Ugarit. He desperately wrote, "My father, now ships of the enemy have come. They've been setting fire to my cities and have done evil in my land." This literal cry for help, it was never even sent. The clay tablet it was written on was actually baked hard in the very fires that destroyed his city. It just plunges us right into the violent reality of this collapse. Within just a few rapid decades, the dominoes fell with terrifying speed. Around 1200 BC, the mighty Hittite capital of Hattusha was burned so fiercely that its stone bricks literally melted, burying the ancient floors in a thick layer of black ash. By 1177 BC, the massive empire of Egypt was under severe attack. Fast forward to 1158 BC, Babylon was violently sacked, and by 1100 BC, total, irreversible regional collapse. These monumental fortresses were just reduced to rubble, leaving a haunting silence that endured for a millennium. So who were the perpetrators of this ancient whodunit? Well, enter our prime suspects, the Sea Peoples. Traditionally, history has pointed the finger at this mysterious, loose confederation of seagoing raiders for the whole Late Bronze Age collapse. In the ancient records, they sound almost like an alien invasion from a sci-fi movie, an unstoppable, marauding armada that just seemingly appeared out of nowhere from the ocean, sweeping away one great nation after another without any mercy. So, what do our primary suspects actually look like? The Egyptian pharaoh Ramses III carved these massive eyewitness records into the walls of his temple at Medinet Habu. He recorded the names of these diverse groups, the Dununa, the Checker, the Peliset, the Shardana, and the Weshesh. And the carvings are incredibly detailed. They show them not as literal monsters, but as human warriors wearing distinctive feathered headdresses, skull caps, and horned helmets. They were essentially a loose, anarchic alliance of different people sailing under one terrifying banner of destruction. Okay, let's dive right into this next part. The fragile web of trade, the motive, and the vulnerability. To truly understand this mystery, we really have to look at the victims. They were not just isolated, walled-off kingdoms suspiciously glaring at each other. They were actually part of a highly complex, globalized economy. They were deeply dependent on one another. Just take a look at the evidence log from a sunken trading vessel known as the Ulubarim shipwreck, dated to around 1300 BC. The ship was carrying an astonishing cargo: ebony logs, elephant tusks, gold, and glass, sourced from at least 7 different lands. But the real smoking gun here? The ship contained exactly 10 tons of copper from Cyprus and 1 ton of tin imported all the way from Afghanistan. That precise 10-to-1 ratio is the exact recipe needed to smelt bronze. So the crucial point is that bronze was effectively the crude oil of the ancient world. Just as we completely rely on fossil fuels today, ancient societies completely relied on bronze. Without it, armies had no weapons, chariots couldn't move, and craftsmen couldn't build. And because tin was incredibly rare and had to be shipped thousands of miles along the Silk Road, their international supply chains were as fragile as a cobweb. If one single link snapped, the whole shebang was in absolute peril. Which brings us back to the Sea Peoples and the ultimate showdown. When this invading armada targeted Egypt in 1177 BC, Ramses III knew there was no way he could fight them on the open sea. So he set a brilliant, bloody trap right in the Nile Delta. He hid thousands of his archers in the reeds along the banks. When the enemy ships entered the river mouths, the archers unleashed a storm of arrows, and the Egyptian navy moved in to trap them with grappling hooks. Egypt survived. They became the very first to halt the Sea People's rampage. But man, the cost was immense. Isolated in a collapsed world, Egypt's economy completely withered, leaving the empire permanently weakened. Now, this raises a massive question for our investigation. Were the Sea Peoples the true masterminds of the Bronze Age collapse, or were they just a symptom of something much, much worse? The plot definitely thickens here, because modern science has recently uncovered an entirely new set of evidence that completely flips this archaeological cold case on its head. 150 to 300. That staggering number is the duration, in years, of a devastating mega-drought that struck the region. Modern radiocarbon dating of sediment cores from the Sea of Galilee proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that this period was the driest of the entire Bronze Age. We actually have ancient letters from Hittite queens and Syrian merchants desperately begging for grain, warning that their people were going to die of hunger. The earth dried up, causing widespread, crippling famines. And the climate disasters didn't stop there. 7.5. That is the staggering amount of rock and ash in cubic kilometers blasted into the sky by a massive volcanic eruption in Iceland known as Hekla 3, which happened right around this exact time. The skies darkened globally. We know from ancient tree rings in Ireland and bristlecone pines in the United States that tree growth basically stalled for nearly 2 decades. Imagine living through that. The sun turns a pale white. Crops fail year after year. The air is just thick with dust. People genuinely believed the gods had abandoned them. So it wasn't just one attack. We are looking at a devastating perfect storm. A total domino effect of mega-droughts, the Hekla 3 volcanic eruption, and even a 50-year sequence of severe earthquakes. Furthermore, there was a major technological shift happening at the same time, the spread of cheap iron weapons. Suddenly, smaller, opportunistic nations and rebellious, starving citizens could arm themselves without needing the expensive, elite bronze-making networks of the major empires. The playing field was violently leveled right as the big empires were starving. And here is the ultimate twist in our whodunit. The old theory paints the Sea Peoples purely as bloodthirsty, evil marauders. But the new evidence? It strongly suggests they were actually desperate climate refugees. These weren't just evil conquerors. They were starving families from islands like Sicily or Sardinia, fleeing a dying world where the sun was dimmed and the crops just wouldn't grow. As the interdependent global system crumbled, they took to the seas, forced into piracy simply to survive. There's a really fascinating historical postscript to this mystery, too. After their crushing defeat in Egypt, some of these Sea People refugees didn't just vanish into history. One group, known to the Egyptians as the Peleset, eventually settled in the Levant. They put down roots, becoming the Philistines of biblical fame. In fact, their ancient name directly gave us the modern name of that region today, Palestine. They weren't just destroyers, they were desperate survivors looking for a new home. So, as we look at the breakdown of this systemic collapse, I think we can finally solve the mystery. The total destruction of the Bronze Age wasn't committed by a single villain. It was a fatal, unstoppable domino effect. Severe climate disasters triggered massive supply chain breakdowns. Those broken trade routes caused widespread starvation, which in turn sparked desperate migrations of refugees, opportunistic invasions from rival neighbors, and bloody internal revolts. The very interconnectedness that made them strong is exactly what ensured that when one fell, they all fell. Which leaves us with a rather haunting parallel to ponder. You know, the late Bronze Age was a complex, highly interdependent, globalized society, much like ours is today. They relied heavily on critical resources shipped from across the known world. So the question we really must ask ourselves is, if a single broken link could trigger a perfect storm that collapsed the mighty ancient empires into dust, just how fragile is our own globalized world today? Thank you for exploring this archaeological mystery with me. Keep questioning the past and stay curious.